time now to go through the papers with the former editor of the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, and the actor Christopher Biggins. A very good morning to both of you. Biggins, you were telling me rather expensive tickets to see a pop star, if I fancy.
Absolutely. Well, Adele is going back. Of course, poor Adele had a bit of a trouble earlier.
Was it about a year ago?
Was it a year ago? Yes. Yeah. She was going to open in Las Vegas, and you've not been to Las Vegas?
No, I've never been. Oh, I might go for Adele, but not for 40,000.
No, she's charging this time. She's going back to Las Vegas, and there was a real problems before with the set, and she wasn't happy, and she's going back, and now tickets are selling in Las Vegas for £40,000. I mean, it's ludicrous, isn't it?
I would pay that not to see it.
Yeah, I would. I would.
Really? Sorry, but controversial.
Well, I think the bigger problem is that if you pay for a ticket, last time lots of people have done that, their accommodation, their flights, to then get a teary video posted on social media to say, sorry guys, it's cancelled.
I know.
So can you trust her that it's going to go on?
No, I don't think you can. Listen, if people want to spend that ridiculous amount of money, then good luck to them. But I mean, not for me, I'm afraid.
Well, you've got to be mega rich to do that.
Yeah, you do. I mean, but I have to say, as we were talking earlier before this, in the break, go to Las Vegas and go for 3 days. It is phenomenal. But any longer, and forget it. It's a 3-day wonder.
Yeah, but
it's a fantastic place. I mean, never goes to bed. You just go from one theatre to another theatre, to a restaurant, and the gambling is fun. Oh. I love sitting in those machines and just pulling. Oh,
you ever win?
No, but it's good fun though.
Provided you keep a hand on it. The machines are good fun, it has to be said.
I'd go and see it. I think Adele's incredible.
I love Adele.
Do you?
Yes.
Really?
I just feel like I've heard one song and I've heard everything she does. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Voice.
And I just think she was a bit mean to fans, as you say, that teary video when people were literally getting off the planes to go and see her that time. All that money wasted.
There's not many artists at the top of the charts now who could just command an audience with just a piano and her voice. And she can do that in such a sublime way.
Well, that was the problem, wasn't it? Wasn't there a water feature on stage as well? She was having issues with.
Well, don't we all? Don't we all?
Well, you are terrible with the water
Terrible with water feature. It's a nightmare.
Stephen, that's enough of your bladder. What should we talk about next?
Good, let's talk about the Times. What's the armed forces are telling women to stop sleeping about?
Well, this is the actual headline. Don't sleep around. Service women are told. Sorry, it takes two. What about the men involved in this? This is on the back of this horrific story about a submarine rape claim where the woman was treated like she was the guilty party. And, the Royal Navy's been forced to investigate a scandal over the treatment of women serving on British nuclear submarines. Sophie Brooke is the story in the Mail about this as well. And she's revealed a culture of misogyny where she described women were ranked on a rape list during her time where she was serving on the submarines. And it was just like they were treated as second-class citizens. And in the 12 months to March of this year, 68.3% of rape cases heard in civilian courts secured a conviction, where only 12% in the court-martial had. So basically, the armed forces...
That doesn't mean that... I always have an issue when we talk about conviction rates, whatever the crime is, because it's like, well, only half of them have been convicted. Therefore, half of them have got away with it. Well, not if they weren't guilty.
Well, obviously there is that, but they're not actually getting to court, Stephen, as well, is the other issue here. I mean, they're not even getting there. But I mean, it's just the advice is like, there is a hell of a lot of misogyny still existing. We know, we've discussed it at length on this show in our Metropolitan Police Force for a certain. But the armed forces still seem to have this culture where women, even though you can be on the front line now, we had that marvellous story the other day about the young lady who passed her para test.
Carter.
Yeah, and it's like, but there is still this misogyny, and just the advice that women are being given now not to sleep around. I mean, to prevent sex attacks. It's not the women doing the sex attacks, by the way. It's the men doing it. What advice are you giving to men?
I suppose the difference is the women are very much in the minority.
Yes.
And so it's easier to, if you want to control, it's going to be easier to try to control the smaller group than the larger group. But I guess.
But it's not the smaller group that need controlling.
No. You're right. But I don't know. I mean, it does smack a bit off. But telling the army boys to behave themselves in that way, if they're 19 and young, free and single, it seems It's a hiding to nothing, isn't it?
Well, you're telling young women.
Well, you're telling yeah, I know.
Rape victims are the victims. The clue's in the word victim.
Yeah.
They're not the perpetrators. Just saying. Okay, so back to your bladder.
Yeah. No, I just think it's a really difficult one.
It is difficult. It's a horrific story, but it's just that headline that caught my eye. Don't sleep around women.
Let's move to the Daily Mail, if we can, Biggins. And Harry's book. We've already heard a little bit about it on the programme this morning, but the Daily Mail's take is that did he have to sex up the book for the publishers?
Well, I probably originally he did. My interest in the book is I can't wait to read it. I mean, I've got...
Really?
I'm longing to read it.
Biggins.
No, I'm sorry.
Why?
Because I want to see what he's written. I want to see how he's affected the royal family. I think it's going to be very, very interesting. And I've ordered mine already from Amazon, so what's your problem, Dawn?
Even the fact that the title is called, it's clever, it's spare. It's like just screams of victimhood, doesn't it? In that one word, he's managing to have a go, but his father and his brother, just by, I'm spare. And it's just, people are really suffering out there, and he's in an incredibly privileged position, as is his wife, and yet they're permanently portraying themselves as victims.
What do you make of this from Debbie Biggins, who says, every story has two sides, but we will only ever get to hear Harry's version. King Charles will never be able to respond or counter any allegation.
Well, at the moment, but they made, King Charles may do a book later on, which he might say things in it. I mean, I think, you have to give everybody a chance. I mean, there are so many biographies, so much we know about people. I'm fascinated by the fact, I think that this was going to come out on Thanksgiving in America, and they've now made it come out in January. And I think the problem is that he's probably gone back after his grandmother's funeral and said, can we cut this? Can we get rid of this? And they paid him, 34 million?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of money for this book. And he's probably worried a little bit because he did absolutely adore his grandmother, and I think she probably had a few words to say on the subject. I mean, I'm only interested because I just think it's going to be fascinating to see what he has to say.
And I think the reality is, if we don't read it, we'll certainly get the best lines from the book anyway, because it will be littered throughout the papers.
Yes, in the Daily Mail for sure.
What's going on with eco-warriors in the Sun, Dawn?
Oh, they're still gluing themselves to things, evidently.
Oh, they're lovely.
Yes.
Well, they promised they would for all of October.
Yeah, they did, and yes, Halloween. Happy Halloween, everybody, by the way. And they are still doing it. They started on the 1st of October, but the thing is now, furious drivers have actually started to drag them away, and the police are telling the public not to intervene. Now, it's the police's job. Surely it's a criminal offence to do what they're doing on the roads, to block the roads. Surely it's the police's job to remove them, and yet the police don't seem to actually be doing that. So you can't blame. So the very dramatic picture of a lady who was trying to get her sick child, I believe, to hospital, literally dragging one of them away, and you cannot blame people for doing this.
But she could therefore, you're more likely to see her prosecuted for actual
Stephen.
bodily harm.
Meanwhile, the police don't seem to be doing anything. In fact, the bit of footage I saw online over the weekend, they were just sitting, crouching down, almost offering them a cup of tea still.
Well, the police have in some cases been trying to remove them and take their hands away and clear the roads. What's the alternative? What should the police be doing when they're all sat there glued to the pavement?
Removing them straight away. Don't sit there, don't offer them a cup of tea, don't give them blankets. Just remove them straight away, Rosie. Why do we let them do that?
And it's
a criminal offence.
And it's interesting, too, what you're saying, because the actual public are doing their bit now. They're removing them. They're pulling them off.
Yeah, but as Stephen just said, they're the ones that are going to get prosecuted.
Yes.
So why do you think there's this reticence from the police to do that?
I have absolutely no idea. You know what, Rosie? Speaking as a football fan, I go to football home and away most weekends, and football fans just walk into the ground are nowhere treated anywhere like this by the police forces. We are treated like criminals purely by walking to a football ground, okay? We're not offered cups of tea or a blanket if we're a bit nippy. We're not even breaking any laws. So why are they treating this lot with kid gloves, whereas ordinary people, certainly football fans will know this, are treated like criminals just for going to an away match?
I don't think the police should move in and unglue them straight away.
Yeah,
No, I don't.
Why?
I don't know. I'd leave them there. I'd leave them there.
Yeah, but the chaos they're causing.
Well, let's let's live with that for a week and see what they're like in a week.
Yeah,
I'd do it again.
Stephen, I would completely agree with you, Stephen. I mean, I really would. However, they are blocking major artery getting to hospital.
I tell you what is a good idea is why don't we remove them and stick them somewhere else? You know, on some, you know.
Stick them on the next wall.
Well, you know, what, you know, the olden days when they used to
On
put
the stocks.
stocks and throw things at them. That would be marvellous.
Well, I can see the appeal.
Yeah, or a prison cell possibly. That would be quite a good put them in there.
The police are supposed to have increased powers to be able to handle exactly this scenario, but as you say, Dawn, in many of those situations, it does appear as though they're not doing exactly what maybe they
Rosie,
should.
I don't even drive a car, by the way. I'm quite green. I actually cycle everywhere. My favourite one was I was actually coming down a cycle lane, and there was one of them glued to the cycle lane. It's like, it's a cycle lane. You want people to cycle.
Well, they want you to talk about it, which is exactly what we've done.
Yes, indeed it is. Thank you both. We'll catch up with you a little bit later on. Thanking you.